give you what's coming to you later. I don't have to do it, right? You ever turned it back on them? Look what Jesus did. Jesus internalized it. Jesus said, I'm going to entrust myself. I'm going to take my actions and I'm going to put them in your hands. I'm not going to say a word at this moment because I'm going to allow you to deal with me, not them. You don't wish things on others. That's stupid. I'm a Jesus follower. You're going to get yours. Come on. Doesn't even make sense, but that's how we do it. He entrusted himself back to God. The way he was able to handle this criticism. So number one, here's the first thing you do, or one of the options you can have whenever you're dealing with someone who's being critical. Number one, you can do nothing. Oftentimes, don't respond. Case in point. Wes got his first critical email after preaching just his second sermon. You would say it's an overachiever, but I got mine after the first sermon. Right? So, how many of you all picked ball cap? Wes lovers. How many of y'all picked fedora? That's me. So Wes wore a ball cap while he preached last week. We got an email. You'd have thought this was hell in a handbasket right here. I mean, like, we were just lining y'all up to send you off to your eternal damnation, right? And he didn't wear shoes. That feller. So, I actually got the email, and I thought it was about me. Till I read, and it was the date that I wasn't here. But inside of me, man, I really, really, really wanted to email him back. I mean, sure, he didn't even ask, are you gonna say something? And I'm like, not yet. But maybe. Right? I really wanted to. I wanted to tell him, like, I'm sorry you're so bound up in religious that you couldn't understand what he was saying based on what he was looking like. Right? I'm sorry. I wanted to say, God, you really are an idiot. I wanted to say, holy cow, how do you even function when you're up north? Because they were from up north. I'm sorry if you're from up north. I'm sorry. I wanted to. We got this email on Monday. And even at Thursday, I'm like, come on, God, let me tell them something. No, wouldn't. He wouldn't. And I never did. Because oftentimes, you do not respond. Just let them criticize. Well, that's not fair. They get to run their mouth, but I don't get to run mine. Welcome to Christianity. It's not fair. No, you don't get to pop off at the mouth because you're getting criticized. If you do, you're probably responding in the flesh. You don't want to do that. You want to respond in the Spirit. And sometimes the Spirit says, shut your mouth. Just shh. You ever heard this? Why argue? Let's see. You can argue with a fool. No. What is it? Okay, so there's this thing you're arguing, right? They call you a fool. You can either keep your mouth shut or open your mouth and remove all doubt. Is that it? Better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt, right? Because a lot of times you're opening your mouth and you're going to be just as foolish as they are. That's the premise. That's what here. Jesus said nothing. He knew, but get this, he knew what he was called to do. He knew what he was supposed to do. Wes had confidence that he could wear his cap and still be loved by God and deliver a message that changed lives. He was confident. Nothing anybody else could have changed. I am confident that I can stand here with no shoes on and take it. Take it. Confident. You got to be confident in what God has called you to do. Without it, you'll get blown around. People will criticize you and be like, okay, you're right. And you'll let them mold you into this little package that doesn't look like what God has called you to look like, but more what they've called you to look like. But promise, there are other people. Wes would have probably been okay if he'd have worn a fedora, right? There would have been other people like, you can wear a hat, but it can't be that hat, right? It can go all places. It's crazy. Sometimes you just got to not say a word. And that's freeing. It's freeing. Without it, what you're doing is you're giving people access to yourself. Whenever you come back, man, you're just giving them access to come again. It rears up in people. I mean, you know how you feel when people criticize you. And when you respond, they just want to come again. I want to do that. Proverbs 19:11. I didn't give you Proverbs 19:11, did I? I apologize. Don't criticize. Scripture, here's what it says. A person's wisdom yields patience. It's to one's glory to overlook an offense. I said it as slow as I could, thinking she might type fast, but she did it. There it goes. Sensible people control their right? So we don't respond. The wisdom of God will allow you, or the patience of God will allow you to chill out. Just chill out whenever something like this happens. Just hold. Just put your mouth in park and hold off a minute, right? It happens. Overlook. So this is actually number 2. Do nothing. Overlook the offense. Overlook is not forgiving. Forgiveness is something that happened in the past. Overlooking is real time. Overlooking is the ability to continue in the relationship in the very moment and to simply overlook it, to simply blow right past it. Listen, if you're ever talking to me and I'm enacting this option when dealing with criticism, my face will look like this. Because in my mind, I'm saying, please hurry. So we have a son. When you're criticizing him, and he's overlooking it with you, like he's ignoring what you're saying, his look is that. It's like, never says a word, just leaves. And we, because we are the best parents on the planet, when he walked away, you go, I think we got through. Not really, he's just overlooking your offense. Give me a lot of credit for being Christian or biblical, but I don't know if that's true or not. But we do this in real time. You could fight back, you could retaliate. I know I could get defensive, I could do all those things when people are doing this, but it doesn't do you any good. I know it, man, when I do it, it would make my heart actually bitter, not better. To come back, to push back. When I can overlook this in real time, it keeps the relationships moving forward. You can criticize, and I'm going to move right on. I'm just going to overlook that and keep going. We're just going to keep on walking, right? We're just going to keep on doing things together. You're going to criticize, and I'm going to ignore. You need to be saying that to the relationships in your life. Because what happens is somebody criticizes you and you don't do this, you don't overlook it, you put up the wall. Guess what? Putting up the wall is not stopping the criticism. Doesn't help. You're still going to hear it. Wouldn't it be better to be actively doing what God would have you to do than to shun or to put back or to build up that wall? Just let them criticize, but keep on moving forward. Actually, I told you that was the second thing. That's not the second thing. Here's the second thing. You're going to like this one, I think. It gives you a little bit of freedom. Number 2, you respond carefully. You respond carefully. Notice, not react instinctively. There's a difference. Reacting instinctively is emotions. That's the one. That's why I say, that's why I thought we were getting confused with the numbers here. You got to pause a minute before you respond. You know that sometimes when you're being criticized, you need to go ahead and give an answer? You need to go ahead. There's a biblical option or biblical model for this. Judges 8, verses 1 through 3. This is about Gideon. Gideon's getting criticized by the Ephraimites. Here's what he says. Why have you treated us? I gave you that one. Not to be overly critical, but that's taken a long time. Why have you treated us like this? Why didn't you call us when you went to fight with the Midians? With the Midianites? They argued heatedly with Gideon. They're just telling him, why didn't you call? Why did you do it this way? Why did you go out and do that? Why did you take that step? You shouldn't have done that. Verse 2. Keep going. I'll read it faster. Take your time. Just click it when you're ready. But Gideon replied, what have I accomplished compared to you? Aren't you even the leftover grapes of Ephraim's harvest better than the entire crop of my little clan of Abiezer? I mean, that gets a little wordy, but what he's saying is, this is what happened. This is why. I mean, he's explaining it, all right? So he was getting criticized. He took him on. He said, okay, hold up. Let me just tell you. Look at what happened in verse 3, because this is really cool. God gave you victory over Oreb and Zeeb, the commanders of the Midianite army. What have I accomplished compared to that? When the men of Ephraim heard Gideon's answer, say it, their anger subsided. Sometimes you just need to explain. Sometimes you just need to say it. Why do you allow people who have a job to come to your market and get food? We could ignore that criticism. Or we could say, because there's a lot of people out there who are underemployed. There's a big difference because there's a perception in the world that says if you're going to a food bank to get food, then you need to be homeless, jobless, derelict, and at least trying to get a job. That's not true. There's a lot of people out there who just don't make enough. And we have to get food out of the food pantry. When you explain it that way, normally, people are like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. We give out these Christmas trees. At Christmas, we were just talking about this because we're going to start Christmas prepping. Wow, that's crazy. Wow, right after Halloween. But we put out these Christmas trees, right? And we put names in the church and we put names at the bars that we partner with, where people are able to bring and pick up toys. We only partner with bars. We don't have trees at banks. We don't have trees at the grocery store. We have trees at the bar, right? They're my favorite bars, right? And that's the ones we choose. People ask, you shouldn't be putting trees at bars. You're just encouraging people to go in there to get their names off the trees. Really? Really? My putting a tree in a bar encouraged this person to go in to get a thing off the tree, and while they were there, they got drunk, and now that's my fault. Right? No. I might have encouraged them to go to the right bar. Anyway, so we explained that. Because those people, those guys, the people that go to those particular places have the most heart for what we're doing, and they've responded back to us and said, we want to help support, and we want to be a part of this. And they don't buy really good stuff. They just go and they help, and they get just whatever they can. And they bring it. So then we put the names on our trees too, and everybody gets 2 things, and it's awesome. And when I have this conversation, they're like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Sometimes you have to explain. Sometimes you just need to give an answer for why you're doing what you're doing. It's okay because their anger subsides. You just read it. It's possible. Do you have to every time? No, you've got to know when to. You see, when you're called by God and you know what God is asking you to do, it doesn't matter what anybody else says, and then you choosing whether to ignore it or to explain it is on you and the Spirit of God within you. Because you can show love in both ways. You can ignore it or you can explain it. You can answer their questions and take away some of their anger. Are you starting to see a way in your life that you can apply at least one or two of these, or the first two? Thank God. I'm going to thank God right now. Anyone ever said to you, why you spend so much time down at that church? Why do you want to go into ministry? Why are you going down there to do that? You're spending too much time there. You want to be a stay-at-home mom? Look at the education you got. That same person can get criticized. You want to go to work? You got kids. But knowing what you're called to do is being able to explain. This is what I feel where I'm going to make the most impact. This is what I feel God is asking me to go do in this particular place. And you turn that around, and people see Him inside you. People see what He's asked you to do inside you. They see it coming to fruition. They see things lining up in your life now. Light bulbs start going off everywhere. Oh, okay, that makes sense. It makes sense. You know what? I couldn't do what you do then. I watched somebody do this, and they explained it. And the person that was criticizing went, listen, I still couldn't do it, but I'm proud for you. I'm glad for you. When this happens, God gets this sort of weird glory, but it's still His glory. They get to see Him working in your life. So you can either ignore it, respond carefully. Number 3, occasionally, you need to listen and make a change. Occasionally, you need to listen to what people are saying. Listen, if everyone around you is telling you the same thing, you might be the problem. You might actually have the problem. Listen, if everybody around you is telling you that the guy you're dating is the devil, you need to cast that demon out, right? And wait for the one God has for you. If everybody else sees it, maybe you need to understand you're the blind one. If your wife is telling you, listen, you're always on the kids, you're always yelling at them, you're hounding, maybe you need to analyze the situation a little bit, make a change. Just adjust a little bit. Listen, because if you're not, at least in this year, going to make 3 or 4 changes to your life because you're listening to constructive criticism, you're missing out on some growth. The people you love that are around you, sometimes even the people that don't love you, can offer you criticism that you need to listen to. There's been plenty of times that I've been criticized from people that I don't think like me, but I've listened to it. And I take it. And then I decide, maybe I need to change that. Maybe I need to monitor that one. Maybe I need to. And I make those adjustments. And I'm thankful that God has placed them in my life. That particular person for that particular moment. And I'm saying, thank you. And I take that moment and I adjust. Proverbs 15:31. I think it's the right one, right? If you listen to constructive criticism, you'll be at home among the wise. Anyone who ignores the discipline despises himself. But whoever listens to direction acquires good sense. So it literally tells you, listen to it. You're already going to hear it. It's popping in your mind, and now you can decide. Do nothing. Respond carefully. Make a change. Adjust. And none of them have you been able to blow up yet. None of them have you been able to bite back. None of them have you been able to go, oh yeah, but what about you? Look, I saw what you did. That's not in there. Nothing. Carefully make a change. Look at what they're saying. Analyze it. Listen, I had my first preaching gig. I wasn't called to do it. It was a job. Okay? However, I had this person that lovingly told me how bad I sucked. Why you gotta assume it's her? It was her. Sherry Ann came after one Sunday night and was like, honey, I love you, but I'm never coming back to this church. You're trying to preach like somebody else. You're doing it forced. You're forcing the whole thing. You sound like a seminary professor, and you're not a seminary professor. And she was right. So I quit. I did. Well, actually, I got fired. Okay. I like to say I quit because it's easier. Can I tell you why I got fired? Because you want to know, right? Okay, here's why I got fired. So church gigs don't pay a lot, ever, right? So I'm preaching there, but we also had a job every Christmas season to go and work at this restaurant to make extra money to pay for Christmas, because that's the most important thing about Christmas is having enough money to give good gifts, right? 4 kids, and they deserve the best. Yada, yada. Anyway, so I'm preaching and I'm working. I'm preaching and I'm working. Well, 5 deacons, I kid you not, 5 deacons came to my house one Monday, I think it was, and was like, we gotta talk to you. I'm like, okay. Do you happen to work at this restaurant? It's called Paradise Pavilion. Do you happen to work at Paradise Pavilion? I'm like, well, yeah. They're like, do they serve alcohol? I'm like, yeah, I'm their bartender. Without the alcohol, this job would suck. It would just be me and hamburgers, right? Well, one of our people saw you there. You're not going to be able to preach at our church anymore. I went, did you kick the person out for eating there? It was probably one of you morons. Right? Because only a deacon will fuss at you about drinking with beer in his fridge. Only a good deacon, right? If you're from up north, that'll sink in later, right? Okay, anyway, let that happen. So anyway, that's why. So they were very critical, but they were there, and it's okay to eat there. You just can't serve it, right? And that's a Baptist thing a long time ago. Why did I even tell you that story? Because you asked. They're in a green, blue, whatever you are. You asked. But no, I did. I had to analyze that. I stopped. I did. I took that, and I'm like, And about a minute and a half later, I said, no, you're idiots. I'm not going there anymore. I didn't even give it, that one I didn't. I did. I gave an answer. We needed the money. You could have got a job at 7-Eleven. They serve alcohol too. Well, you could have got a job maybe where people don't see you. That would make it right. As long as nobody knows, it's not really a sin. I had to analyze that. So the next week, we went back to work because I believed that was what we should do. Just because you give the answer doesn't mean they're always going to agree with you. Their anger subsided, so I don't have a relationship with them anymore. But at least it was answered. I didn't just ignore that time. I didn't just respond carefully that time. I gave an answer. I did respond that time. Just careful. Outcome's not always what you think it's going to be. But knowing what God has asked you to do and doing it is the most important thing. You have to be confident in where God has called you, and you listen and you make the change when you need to make the change. Now, I did make the change as far as preaching goes. That's where we started this whole thing. We started with you. She lovingly told me how bad I was and in what manner. So the very next time we took a church gig, happens to be this one, I made the change and said, I'm not going to do it the way anybody else does it. I'm not going to try to mimic it. I'm not going to try to copy it. I'm just going to be me. And we'll see. And in my heart, God honored that. God was able to bring us to people. God was able for us to relate. God was able for us to preach in T-shirts and hats and no shoes. And He made it possible for all that to happen so that we could relate to people and we could do with people. And when I look over the past 15 years, I'm so thankful for that one. that said, you can't do that. Lovingly, you can't do that. And you can clap at her. Yeah, she's good at that. Now, there's a lot of times she criticizes that she probably shouldn't. I don't know. So how do you respond? Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you do it carefully. Not driven by emotion, we're driven by the Spirit. And sometimes you need to make a change. But number four. Always, always, always work to guard your heart. This is you. This one's yours. Work to guard your heart because you're not called to live in a critical spirit yourself. You're not called to be the critical person. Now, this is going to sting, and it might sting. Who has the critical spirit? Does anybody know? Darth. Who are you? Thank you. He does it from sleep. It's awesome. It's cool. See, that's right. Satan. Darth, the dark side. He's the father light. He's the one that creates. He's a deceiver. The Bible calls him this, the critical. He's the guy who will do this, and he will criticize you to keep you in shame and guilt. And he'll make you just always, he'll want you to be that way. He wants you to offer this spirit to other people because that allows other people to not see God. Or it keeps other people from seeing God. It keeps people seeing more of them. You see, if you can go out there and criticize as a Christian, it makes other people feel okay with criticizing. And what you harbor is this of criticism. And you can sit around and you can criticize others together. Because don't you know, it's more fun to criticize somebody when you got a partner. Right? I mean, you like to take two or more. Because the Bible said so. Go get a friend. You want to criticize somebody, get another one. Right? It's not what that means. Don't do that. But we love it. We love that. Misery loves. That's not in the Bible, but it's true. And when you're living in a critical spirit, you're miserable. You literally are. You're just sitting there. I'm going to do this. I just can't wait till I do it. And it's just bleh. That's what your life emulates. I mean, it just pushes out towards people. And it's just nuts. I don't want my words. I don't want my heart to be cutting, to be detracting. Look at Proverbs 12:18. I woke her up. Didn't I, Wes? I woke her up. She was snoozing. Some people make cutting remarks, but the words of the wise bring healing. I want to be the one who brings healing. You can be one or the other all the time. Some people make cutting remarks. Okay, it doesn't tell you necessarily what happens when you make the cutting remarks. I think that's self-explanatory. When it says, but wise people bring healing. So what kind of person makes cutting remarks? Idiots. Good answer. Unwise. If wise people bring healing, then unwise people bring cutting remarks. So think about that the next time you decide to criticize somebody. That's right, Dave. You're the idiot. When you bring out the criticism. See, we've already looked at it from the other side. How to deal with those people. But now you, when you're the person, when you're the one trying to... we don't know why they're critical. We don't know why you're critical. But I know that sometimes it's so that I can justify. I know that if I'm going to criticize, then I'm trying to justify my life. Maybe I'm trying to justify something I got criticized about. You ever done that? You get criticized, you turn around and criticize not necessarily that person, but somebody else. It's a conscious choice to not be critical. We have no idea how this critical spirit is born out of our sinful nature. But that's exactly what's causing it. This thing that's coming out of this nature of ours. And we just sit around and say it. I can't believe she dresses like that. I can't believe she wore that. I can't believe the way they spend their money. I can't believe it. Listen, if I had their kind of money, I would be more godly with it. I would be a lot more generous. You see how it starts to get covert? It's not always outward. It's not always so in your face. When you are living in a critical spirit, it just comes out. It's kind of a byproduct of living there. Just like living in God's perspective or living under His Spirit, at that moment, the byproduct is to respond the way He'd want you to. When you live in a critical spirit, you don't even know you're doing it sometimes. It just comes out. And you say that kind of stuff. Well, you don't appear very godly. Well, the way you do it, I don't know how you can say that you are. Anybody ever had that said to them? I'm sorry. Listen, I can do it. As people approach, I know Craig can do it. As people approach, well, why don't you go get a bigger job? You know what? If you were working a little more, you wouldn't need as much help. You know, if you were paying more, if you weren't paying that cell phone bill, if you weren't riding up here in the car you rode up in, you wouldn't need as much help. You know what? You could go sell that car. You could go do this. You could go do that. I can offer constructive criticism all day long from a critical spirit. And that's exactly how it comes off. How many times have you ever wanted to get assistance or to love back on somebody who criticizes you from a critical spirit? Never. Because you know when they're being a critical spirit. You're making these decisions. You're doing one of those three things. When you're honoring God and you're living in your calling and this happens, you know it. They're doing the same thing to you. They're listening to you and this critical spirit's coming out, and then all of a sudden you're wondering, well, but I'm godly? But you don't want my help? You don't want to be my friend? No, they don't. You don't want to come to our church? No, they don't. They know you. They know me. When I'm living in this critical spirit and the world is seeing it, they want nothing to do with what you offer. They don't have anything to do with you. The last thing they want to do is come sit in our beautiful cushy chairs on our nice new carpet. Shameless plug. That's the last. The last thing a fellow Christian wants to do is come to you for advice when all you've done is turn around and criticize them for what they're doing in their life and pointed out all their sins, you know. You're just the one that wants to keep them on track. You're the one that wants to help them on their path with God, because God can't do it on his own with you, evidently. He needs your help to help out this guy, to help out this girl. Nobody wants to be around that when you're living from a critical spirit. It's this guy. Y'all might not know this, but Darth Vader is our representation of the devil. Okay? That guy. There's no good in him. It's all bad. But that's who you're looking like to them. That's what your approach is. Nobody wants to be around that. Anybody's ever watched those movies knows nobody ran up to Darth Vader that was a good guy and was like, I can't wait to hang out with you. You seem like a really nice feller. Your critical spirit turns more off than it drags in. You want to make a difference? You got to learn to rise above it. You got to learn to turn that off. Look at Romans 14:10. This is what Paul is telling you and I as believers. So why do you condemn another believer? Why do you look down on another believer? Remember, we will all stand before the judgment seat of God. Paul wants to know why you are criticizing another believer. He wants to know. Do you have an answer? I think you ought to stick this verse because you can have an answer. You can. I don't know what it is. Just don't make it that other verse where you got to keep people on the right path, because that's not even right. Find out what the answer is. Because if you're doing it, the answer is because I believe God has called me to go criticize you. All right? If that's the case, live in it. But if your answer is, because I have this critical spirit, well, maybe you need to make a change. He says, why do you do it? We're going to sit before Jesus. We're going to stand before this judgment seat of God. We are all going to stand there. Basically, he's saying, we've already got somebody to do this for us. And he's doing it to you. Okay? Jesus is doing this. You do know Jesus criticizes you on a daily basis, right? He's the only one that can do it in the love that you and I are supposed to have. He's the smartest one with this. So when you feel his criticism, that's how it's supposed to happen. All right? But he's the one doing it. Paul's saying, we've already got somebody who's going to do this. So why are you doing it? Why? Well, because I love them. If that's the case, if that's the real answer, go for it. But this is hard. Come back Wednesday night. We're going to dig really deep on that one. How to do it. And then finish it up. Romans 14, 12 to 13. He finishes off and he says, yes, each of us will give a personal account to God. We're going to stand and give the personal account. Verse 13. So let's just stop. Let's just stop. You mean I don't get to tell people when they've messed up? Yeah, that's what it means. Well, aren't we called to hold each other accountable? Is that what you're doing? Are you holding each other accountable? Is that what you're after? Because godly accountability won't be met with human anger. Godly accountability, they'll pick option 3 every time. They'll make a change because it'll speak to their spirit. God asks you to go to criticize somebody and you do it from the perspective of loving them wholly and holding them accountable, they will always pick option 3. It'll always happen. If you were here Wednesday night, it's always going to be spirit talking to spirit at that moment. Any other option, though, is flesh talking to spirit and flesh talking to, and it's not going to work. Paul simply says, let's stop doing it. Let's just stop doing it. Decide instead, you got an option, to live in such a way that you will not cause another believer to stumble and fall. Doesn't that verse start to make sense now? That verse has nothing to do with you sinning and making somebody else sin. Unless you want to realize that your critical heart is causing them to sin. You ready to take on that responsibility? I am. I want to stop doing it. I want to stop doing it because basically he's saying I can condemn you and it will make you sin for doing it. I sinned and now you've sinned. By simply talking to you or criticizing you over your sin. Paul said, let's just stop. Let's just live in such a way that we don't do this. Let's just live together. And let's keep, I think he's telling us most of the time, do number 1. Say nothing. Say nothing because they're probably not doing it from God's perspective anyway. Because you know what God has called you to do. You know what God has asked you to move around in this world and do and to say and go. You know it. And it's their flesh speaking and trying to get you to off track, trying to get you to not do what God has called you to do. Ignore it. Paul's like, come on. Most of the time, just... And for those with the critical spirit, stop. Stop. When it's you, stop. Do you know the best way for people to not have to deal with critical people is for all of us Christians to stop being critical? If everybody who's hearing me and the potentially billion people who are watching this online, said potentially, if every one of us was to just stop criticizing, then our brothers and sisters would have no trouble dealing with Christian critical people because there wouldn't be any. And then are you going to go out and respond to the world anyway? No. Just you and I stop. Understand your calling. Know who you are in Christ. Don't live in that critical spirit, but live in that light. Look, you're called to come into this room. You're called to come into any room, and you're called to light it up. See, this guy causes rooms to be dark. Every time you walk in, you beat that. You beat darkness every time. God says you're the light of the world. You walk in with His Spirit, and darkness dispels. It's not even supposed to be there. Why on earth, then, would you want to walk in with the light and then talk out of a dark mouth? You shouldn't. You shouldn't want to. In Sunday school, there was two phrases. How can you say you have faith in God and then do this? How can you call yourself and then do this? I know you say that to people all the time. How can you say you're a Christian and then do this? God's saying it to you. How can you call yourself this and then turn around and criticize my others? How can you do that? How can you say you're the light and then walk in and be dark? Don't. Make the change. Stop, as Paul would say, let's just stop. If you want to go get, what's her name? Tell me her name. The one you're going to baptize. Isabel. You want to go get her and bring her up. We'll be ready here in just a second. Can you? Can you be the light that you actually are? Can we stop? Yeah, the answer is yes. Do you want to be? Do you really want to be the light? Listen, criticism comes from all sorts of sources. People are hurting. People have been hurt, and they respond that way. Man, it just calls for us to be compassionate. I'll go here real quick while they're getting in my hair. Listen, I can read Facebook only so long. But come on. I got to think that as Christians, we may want to stop typing. We may actually, you might have to delete your account. Some of you. Because you can't help but criticize. You can't help to defend someone who's been criticized. That's even worse. You can't help yourself. And if you can't help yourself, maybe you just need to delete it. You can see, that's what the world sees. And you look dark when you do that. You don't look like light. Well, if I don't say something, how are they going to see the light? I promise, most of the time, you're not showing light. You're just showing more dark. Just from another perspective. You're just a different shade. You're 50 shades of dark. Oh, if you laughed, you watched the books. That's bad. No. Don't criticize the way I'm talking. All right, let's pray together, and then we're going to stay seated while Isabella gets in the water. Let's pray. God, I thank you that we are able to analyze our life through your lens. God, I pray that you will just shine the critical spirit out of me, that you'll show me when I'm being that way. And that, God, you'll give me the words when I need to respond. You'll give me the quiet when I need to shut up. You'll give me courage to make the change. Most importantly, you'll keep me from being what I see in others. Change me from the inside. Let your light shine. In your name we pray. Amen. Are you back there? Yeah. What are you back there for? Oh, okay. We're making eggs. Let's all stand. Let those guys hear you back there. Come on. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool to watch somebody go from darkness to light, right? Now, go out there and be an example. See you Wednesday night, 5:30 for fellowship meal in the back building in the retreat center. We'll go deeper at 6:15 in Bible study. We'll try to hash some of this out. Answer some questions you might have. See you Wednesday.